What is up, everybody? This is Alex from IHE TV. Help! And today I'm talking about Sam Raimi's Send Help. It's nice to see him back in the director's chair, not directing a Marvel, going back to these horror comedy roots, and delivering a playfully stupid but incredibly enjoyable little movie here, a Castaway combined with Evil Dead with a little bit of triangle of sadness in there, with just enough dings against it for me to not quite have it be an instant classic, but with a few tweaks I think it perhaps could have been. I find what really sells me on his movies is that tone. It feels like you're in on the joke and there's a self-awareness to it. It knows exactly how silly and cartoonish it is. That's the whole fun of it, the whole point of it. And everyone involved seems to be having a blast making it and putting their all into it. These main two leads of Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien are both excellent and seem to know the exact type of movie that they're in, delivering that melodrama, but also a nice range of emotions for how kind of campy and silly it is. Not all of the comedy hits for me. There's kind of a slightly improv style to some of these interactions, but this is nothing like Baywatch, which I think these two writers wrote. Weird pull, because both Baywatch, Friday the 13th, Freddy vs. Jason, these are pretty bad movies, especially Baywatch. That's genuinely one of the worst comedies maybe ever. Like, this film is a crime against humanity. But I think Raimi's one of those directors that can kind of elevate any material that he's given. Even like Spider-Man 3 or Multiverse of Madness are still so enjoyable to watch at points because of that clear, recognizable kind of auteur style that he brings. You can always tell that it's a Raimi movie, and I love that about him. And I actually found the script to be good at balancing against the obvious directions you would think it would go. Sure, there's some clumsiness, some melodrama, some kind of over-the-top cartoonishness to the way it all gets moving, but it finds a good way to string this story along, keep you invested, keep you laughing, keep you guessing, and I just had a great time throughout the full, just under 2 hours, right? Yeah, an hour 53, that's pretty much perfect for a film like this. Could maybe even shave off a few more minutes. How long is like Drag Me to Hell? Why does it do this? Why does it show this is such an annoying thing about IMDb. When you go on it and you scroll down for director Sam Raimi, and it shows producer first by default? Stupid. Yeah, Drag Me to Hell, that was like a perfect runtime. It's a slightly better movie, I think. Maybe it could have been nice to see this, but I didn't think it dragged or anything. I was sold pretty early on in the presentation, despite some pretty awful special effects that we'll get into shortly and some bad green screen. But the shot variety is so much fun. This scene with the tuna on the finger is such a classic Raimi way of putting together a scene. These intense close-ups, fun and creative transitions and jump cuts and smash cuts and sequences that communicate the passing of time in inventive ways. The camera is just so expressive in his movies. I haven't been in a theater, and this is a big deal for a Brit to be saying this, in a while that has had an audience reaction this good. In a crowd, this is really enjoyable. People were cackling with glee at multiple scenes. It's genuinely funny, as well as being vicious and gory. And speaking on the gore, that is one of the bigger, more kind of accepted critiques of the movie are the special effects. I wish, this is kind of what I was getting at earlier, there was more of a commitment to a practical style for some of this violence, because the CG blood is kind of annoying. The CG animals and goo is a bit of a shame when it's like part of the appeal of his old school movies, or even his bigger budget blockbusters like a Spider-Man 2. The practical effects in there for those arms, it makes it so intense, so effective. Would have loved to have seen that here, especially for how high of a budget this has, considering it's fairly small scale. You get big plane crash sequences and this island, and a bunch of it did seem to be shot on location. And not to fully handwave it, but sometimes the bad CG could actually make it kind of funny or fit the tone in scenes like the plane crash, which I don't consider a spoiler. It's in like every trailer. I'll do a little spoiler section in a moment, but I thought the Danny Elfman score did a good job of setting that tone as well. Kind of enhanced that cartoony feel, the exaggerated style of it. The way they tried to dress down Rachel McAdams is a very typical old school Hollywood way of doing things. There's no way a woman of this kind of beauty would have this level of issue in this workplace, but this is what I mean about the cartoonish suspension of disbelief, and adds to a funny contrast with her at the island. So I definitely recommend this, especially on the big screen with an audience. I saw this on a Sunday evening, so it was pretty full. So as far as spoilers are concerned, I really love it when a film as silly or goofy as this can have a brief moment of sincerity that hits when they get drunk and kind of start trauma dumping Felt like a nice moment that fleshed out the characters and kind of took some of the mustache-twirling villainy of this character in particular and just made it feel a bit more unpredictable. I made you question for a moment, hang on, who am I supporting here? Who do I want to happen? They both make awful decisions throughout the movie and your allegiance kind of changes. With the whole escalation with Rachel McAdams' character bumping into the fiance and all the imagery with the diamond ring I thought was hilarious. The hand popping out the sand with it perfectly framed there was a really kind of funny and dark image. Love the face acting for that fake out castration scene. That was amazing. I thought the worst special effects in the movie was the boar kill scene, even though that got the biggest response from my audience. I just wish they could have figured out a way to at least blend some practical element in there. It's just like a weightless creature. I like the POV shot of it running around chasing her though. Very Evil Dead. A fair amounts of conveniences and contrivances. I'm still trying to decide how I feel about the reveal of the big mansion on the side of the island that Rachel McAdams says not to go to because of the poison ivy and stuff like that. I love the sequence inside the building, but I'm not gonna lie when I say it did cross my mind as to how were they not found? With them constantly lighting fires and supplies being sent to this mansion and the fiancé looking for him and so on and so forth. So you could probably tighten up that element of the script, but I found the actual way the story moved and the way the characters beefed and evolved with each other was really compelling. And one other thing, particularly in the kind of first act, I was noticing a bunch of continuity errors which felt just kind of choppy in a way that was pulling me out of it in a way that didn't feel like an intentional stylistic thing. But all in all, I definitely enjoyed this more than I didn't. I'd happily watch this again. I guess with something as recent as Multiverse of Madness nearly making $1 billion, which is insane. That must be more than any of the Spider-Man trilogy. Let me double check that before I put my foot in my mouth too much. Okay, for early 2000s, this is still pretty impressive. Adjusted for inflation, they'd probably be about $1 billion. But point being, with him having all of these big cape shit successes under his belt, hopefully this means we can get a few more regular, more original films from him. I'd love something like this every couple years. So what do I rate this? I'd probably give this a solid 3.5 star with a like. Gotta love a silly, silly director who knows how to play with that tone. So let me know what you thought. How does this compare to his other filmography to you? I'll see you on the next vid. Bye.